Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Close Call. We've got another shorter episodes this week, and then we'll be back to the normal format next week. Today, we're going to be getting into the ceilings and floors of multiple college basketball teams. That'll be the heart of our dialogue, and then we are going to touch a little bit on the situation surrounding Mark Pope up in Kentucky, because even though they got a win over South Carolina last night, I still feel the same way that I did 5 days ago, 10 days ago. So we'll get into that as well. The teams that I'm going to talk about the floor and ceiling for are Duke and Michigan. And Luke, let them hear yours.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about Vandy and Gonzaga, arguably two of the more hit or miss teams, depending on where you stand on them. But as much as we're going to be talking about these big name schools and these teams that we think could either make a deep run or might get bounced early, I'm excited for the next couple of weeks. We got Arch Madness coming up next week. A lot of the smaller mid-major teams, start their conference tournaments. We'll get our first automatic qualifiers coming up. So I advise you to do your homework, stay on top of the big games, but also if you get a chance to check in on Oakland and Robert Morris, check in on Cleveland State and Wright State, every team has an equal chance at winning the national championship as long as you make your conference tournament. So
and whatever you do,
that's my spiel.
In F. Austin, do not forget about the Lumberjacks.
They suffered a bad loss to New Orleans a couple days ago. I was very surprised. I think it was Monday night that they suffered a loss to New Orleans. They just didn't play very well. But that, I always say sometimes a loss might be good for you.
Yeah, and especially at this time of year, like Michigan had a loss to Duke over the weekend. So sometimes losses like that can be timely and help you get on track. It can be a culture shock when you're feeling good about yourself, like Stephen Austin was performing well for a while. The state of Michigan they hadn't lost since that Wisconsin game back in January. So sometimes you need a little wake up call, like Duke had it a few weeks ago in North Carolina. Like sometimes you just got to feel that little sting of defeat, and then it gets you back on track. But let's keep it on the subject of the prestigious Duke University, their ceiling and their floor. So I think that Duke has the design. They have all of the makings of a national championship contender. They have great shooters. They have great bigs, as you saw against one of the best shooting teams in college basketball on Saturday. They're great defensively. I heard more excuses about the refs and this and that, and not enough credit about what Duke's defense was able to do on Saturday. And so
yeah.
Because of that, I mean, their ceiling is undoubtedly the national championship. And I wouldn't be shocked to see Duke get there. They're in the Final Four last year. That defeat stung. Maybe that propels them back this year. Love Cam Boozer. Love Isaiah Evans. A big fan of Patrick Ngangba. I hated seeing him foul out against UNC. Can't wait to see Duke rematch against the Tar Heels here in a little over a week here, too. Not this Saturday, but the following. My biggest concern for Duke is because of their age and because it's something we've seen under John Shire. It's finishing these games. And here he is, the D-Dog. The D-Dog has arrived. It's finishing these games. You saw it with Houston back in the Final Four last year. You saw it with North Carolina a few weeks ago, right? They'll get in these comfortable leads. I mean, Duke was up on Houston by 16 with 5 minutes left in that Final Four game. They're up by, I believe it was 9 or 10 on North Carolina in the second half of that game, and they're kind of working them. Like I thought that Duke was controlling the tempo on North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and it wasn't like they melted down. I mean, Ngangba had foul trouble, but outside of that, I think they just got comfortable. They got lackadaisical. I think they lost focus. They clearly lost focus against Houston. So that's my biggest question mark with Duke is sustaining focus for the entirety of the game, for the whole 40 minutes of the game, because that's what it comes down to. You got to play 40 minutes. What is it, 6 times in March Madness, start to finish. You can't keep your foot off the gas. So that's my spiel on Duke. And so,
I think
to answer that question, ceiling natty, floor Sweet 16. I think they get to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, for me with Duke, I find them to be a matchup problem for almost every single team that they're going to come across. I thought that Michigan was going to be able to kind of, slow down their size, and um, Duke played really well. I've seen a lot of clips coming out of the locker room where the players themselves had such an impact on finding out what was working for them and what wasn't working on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball as well. I think that's a good recipe for success in March. I think their ceiling is undoubtedly the national championship. I mean, um, I think that any Duke fan would tell you that they would probably be disappointed with anything under a Final Four at this point, maybe even a
Yeah.
national title game appearance. Um, for me with Duke, I think that it comes down to, like I mentioned in that short, is just a third score. Um, I don't think you can rely on Dame Sarr and Caleb Foster to con- consistently hit shots. I'm not saying they're not capable of it, but I don't think that's something that a Duke fan is going to go into the night and be like, okay, we're going to get a guaranteed 15 points from Foster. We're going to get 15. We're going to get 10 from Sarr. I think Isaiah Evans and Boozer, both of those guys, you can rely on 10 plus, maybe 20 plus from Boozer. Um, and so, like you mentioned, Ngangba gets in foul trouble against North Carolina. The depth scares me a little bit, but I think their ceiling is still undoubtedly a national championship. When it comes to their floor, I also agree it's a Sweet 16, maybe a shock upset against a team that maybe runs them out of the gym. Like I think like a team like Alabama that just shoots the ball incredibly well,
Yeah.
makes like 23s. I think that's what it would take to beat Duke. Um, so I don't see Duke getting beat before the first weekend. They're going to make it to the second weekend, and I can almost, as Charles Barkley says, guarantee it. But I don't want to do that because I don't want to jinx. I don't want to jinx the Duke Blue Devils for anybody on here, especially you. I know you got a little soft spot for them, but I do
Love them.
think that ceiling national championship floor Sweet 16.
Well, yeah, that's just the thing too. Like I don't have many concerns because Duke is likely going to be a 1 seed, so I don't have any
Right.
concerns at 16 seed or even an 8-9. I
Yeah.
think that their matchup against any of those teams is going to be favorable. It's when you start to get into other 1 seeds and 3 seeds and fours, those that are a bit more capable, a bit better constructed, teams that can shoot lights out, like you're saying with an Alabama. That's where my concern comes in for Duke. But I want to hear what are your thoughts on Vanderbilt?
Vandy. So Vandy's an interesting case because they've kind of been a little bit under the radar since that hot start. They started off 15-0. They picked up a big win over Alabama. But the thing for Vanderbilt that a lot of people didn't realize was the fact that Duke Miles has not been playing since last game was his first game back in 6 games. And they immediately looked a little bit better. Obviously they still struggle at times. I think they get kind of out of rhythm. I don't think that Vanderbilt has that one go-to guy. I love Tyler Tanner, but I don't think that he is somebody that, I don't think he's on the same level of like a Mark Sears, to equate it back to that Bama team where you can just constantly rely on him to create and make a big shot when it comes down to it. I think he's just below that level. He's going to be there. I want the ball in his hands at the end of the game to make the decisions, but I don't think that he is as big of a shot maker as I would hope for a team like Vanderbilt. Um, Obviously, they're a little bit undersized when it comes down to it. So I think that their ceiling is all matchup based. I think their ceiling is an Elite Eight. I think that if they play their best basketball, they're going to be able to kind of outrun teams as long as they take care of the ball. They're pretty efficient on offense, and they're not a bad defensive team by any means. And then I think that their floor is around a 32. I think they're going to win a tournament game just based off seeding. But I mean, I could see them get the wrong team. I could see them being challenged in the first round. But overall, I think their overall team makeup puts them in a good spot for the first round, and then that second round is where we're gonna see maybe like them against like a 4 or 5. So
Yeah, that's just because of their seeding. They're not saying they're at that one spot like a Duke would be. I could see them getting challenged earlier. And it's great if they have Duke Miles back. I mean, thank you for adding that context because that's one of those things at this time of year that some people who are just getting into the sport now, like it's something that you might overlook when you say, oh, like why did this stretch happen? Well, that's the reason why.
Yeah.
I will say that for Vanderbilt, sometimes they can be streaky. Like they definitely do lose in clusters. They'll lose 2 in a row, or they'll lose 3 in a row, and then they'll win 3 straight, and they'll win 4 straight. Like that has definitely been a pattern with them. And so for Vanderbilt, timing is going to be everything. And
Yeah.
it's I know this is going to sound weird. I don't only think this for Vanderbilt. I think this for a lot of teams out there. How you perform in your conference championship, I honestly really don't even care. I'll watch those games for the hell of it, but it means nothing to me because I've
Yeah.
seen teams win that tournament, turn around and lose the following Friday to a 16 seed, Purdue, and then I've seen teams get bounced on the second day and go to the Final Four or go to the Natty. We've seen Duke do that in the past. It doesn't matter. I care about what version of Vanderbilt you're going to get when you get into the tournament. I want to know what version of Vandy you're going to get. Is it going to be that sharp shooting, fast paced version, or is it going to be a Vanderbilt that's a bit out of rhythm, out of sync? It's going to be all about their chemistry going into those games, about what kind of rhythm they're going into March Madness. How they hit their stride is going to dictate what Vandy does in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the conference tournament. I think outside of Florida last year, there was some crazy stat about the SEC tournament champion not making it to a Final Four. I can't remember exactly what it was, since maybe like that Kentucky team, that 38-0 Kentucky team. But yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I don't put too much emphasis on conference tournaments because also you have a lot of teams that are playing super hungry. And you can
Yeah.
honestly, like, I'm not saying that the intensity level is different, but I'm saying that a team like, like Missouri, who's right on the bubble, is going to come at you like a March Madness game. And meanwhile, you've got a team like, Tennessee, who's kind of locked up in the 6, 5, 6, 7 range. And so, I think that there's something to be said for the value of intensity there. And I agree with you. I don't put too much stake into it, even though that Florida team last year, after watching them live in the SEC tournament against Bama, that's when I officially made my national championship prediction. So, yeah.
I mean, some teams are just built different, and that was in the upper echelon of national championship teams that I've watched in my lifetime. Was Florida last year? Like that was just a damn good, deep, hungry team. They're not all made like that. The UConn teams for them they're not all made like that. But I get it. Like there's the competitive coach talk. I understand it. Of you take every game seriously. You stay focused for every game. But at some point you got to acknowledge the reality of the situation that if you're in that tournament and you're Alabama or you're Tennessee or you're Vanderbilt, you're going to the tournament. And there's other teams that like every game is their life. Like they need every single game. The mentality, like whether you want to admit it or not, it's different for these bubble teams, these last 4 out, first 4 in, who really truly genuinely need everything that they can get these next couple weeks. But I want to shift gears, talk about Michigan here for a second. It was on the losing end of that 1-3 matchup this past weekend. So look, my ceiling for Michigan, like Duke, is a national championship. They're absolutely capable of that. We've seen them run many really good teams just off the floor this year. Like this is a team when they're at their best and they're shooting their best, they are damn scary. And Dusty May has done a great job with this team so far since he's gotten up to Ann Arbor. There's a lot of guys I like on this team. I'm a big fan of Yax Lenenberg. I think that he's phenomenal. I'm a great fan of L.A. Kudrow. He's been really good this year as well. I think that Michigan is a really capable team and has a high ceiling. They're an elite shooting team. When they're shooting their best, they're scary. Where my concern for Michigan comes in is number one, did they peak too early? Because I do think that there's a chance they play their best basketball in December, January. There are those teams like that, like 2021 Auburn. That could be them. My other concern is they've had a couple games where they're not their best. Right? Duke, they only scored 63. TCU, they only scored 67. So if you have a game like that against a high-octane opponent, Sweet 16, Elite 8, or even the round of 32, that could be all she wrote. So there are some good 8-9 seeds out there. I think Michigan's floor is around a 32. I think that if they fuck around and find the wrong opponent, that could be it. Just because they've had those games where they're just cold. If you're scoring in the bottom of the 60s, that could be it. But they could also hit their stride right on time for the tournament. So the ceiling is the national championship. That's my take on Michigan.
Yeah. So me and you, we've talked about this off camera before. We have completely different opinions on Michigan. I was with you at one point where I thought Michigan peaked a little bit early. But I feel like Michigan shows up for big games. I know that the Duke game is something different, but you know how I feel about that. I think that game was more of an odd circumstance type of game out of conference where you're sludging through the Big Ten, which I think is the top of the league is pretty equivalent to the Big 12. Without Toppin and Richie Saunders, I think the top of that league is equivalent to the Big 12, and especially without Koa Pete right now. But I think that Michigan's ceiling is obviously a national championship. When they're on, they are the best team in the country. There's nobody that can beat them when they're on. If they hit 10 threes in a game, obviously my boy Yaks from UAB, the UAB transfer, I wanted him badly at Bama. Dude, I cannot stand Elliot Cadeau, but he's a good point guard and he works well for them. I think he is a player that could shoot him out of the tournament if he's not on offensively. Obviously, though, they have a lot of depth, though, and they're old too. Burnett, fifth-year guy. Mara, old guy. I think he's a junior. I watched him a lot at UCLA. I think that Michigan's floor is an Elite Eight. I just don't see a lot of teams matching up with them physically in terms of you saw what they did against Purdue and Mackey. I mean, they didn't even play that well. They just out rebounded Purdue by 20 points and 20 boards in the first half, and they got all those second chances. And I don't think a lot of teams can match up physically with Michigan, and I don't think a lot of teams can match up in terms of its seniority or age with Michigan. So for me, this Michigan team, it does feel a lot like Auburn's team last year. In all honesty, where I'm not sure if they're going to win the national championship, but you know that they're going to be in the picture. So for me, I'm going to say Michigan's floor is the Elite Eight.
That's fair, and like on paper, it is hard to see them not getting into the Elite Eight. But the only reason why I say round of 32 is when you get into that tournament, weird things happen, and if you are off, like you're saying, if Cadeau has an off day, or there's a weak link on that team, I could see them being out early. But
I don't think that the 8-9 seeds are like, I don't think from 7 to 10 the teams are very good. I mean, I'm looking at it, it's the 8-9. I mean, Utah State, Iowa, Miami, Florida, SMU, Clemson, UCF is pretty solid. They're banged up. St. Mary's and Georgia. I mean, I don't see any of those teams beating Michigan or even having a chance. Like I don't, and I know Georgia is okay, but Georgia is they can't match it. Georgia will not beat Michigan. They just won't. They have Mike White.
Ones that there's two, and that's why like they're my floor. But I don't see them getting bounced around 32. I wouldn't be surprised if they are. But I don't see them. I don't see it happening. Realistically, like a guy, if you were to put a gun to my head and ask me where I think Michigan ends up, I think they end up in the Elite Eight this year. I think realistically that's where they go.
I can see it.
I think the only two that have a chance that you mentioned, and I mean slight, is UCF or SMU. To me, maybe Clemson. That's it.
Hell no. Yeah. Clemson will get boat raced by them. I think that SMU would get boat raced by them too. They have not won away from home. They have not like all their quad one wins are at home. I don't see any of the, maybe maybe UCF, but still like I mean it is like that's like 2% for me.
It's a long shot.
Michigan would
All
be
right.
a 15.5 point favorite against UCF. That's my whole thing.
And Michigan, the other thing that I forgot to mention about them is that they are really good on the road. I mean, they haven't lost what I would call a true road game. I don't know what the fuck you want to call Saturday. DC, I don't Verizon
It's
Center.
neutral site. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, like they haven't gone to the Mackey Center and lost, so they haven't gone to the Azone and lost. Like they're
yeah.
in true road games, they're still undefeated this year, and that is a damn impressive feat.
I'm with you, and I do agree that they might have peaked early. I'm with you there too.
There's a chance,
but also that peak in that peak they were beating teams by 40, 50 points. I mean that was like that peak is unsustainable.
Well, and if that's the thing is if you can get that version of Michigan again,
you're fucked.
They're winning it all. Like there's nothing in their way. Like if
they'll run through the whole thing.
The version of Michigan is back.
That version of Michigan's not coming. That was the most that stretch of basketball was the most impressive stretch of basketball I've seen in a long time.
It was NBA level. I mean, I wrote down a few of the point totals they had. They had 101 against Gonzaga. They had 102 against Auburn. Then 96 against UCLA or USC. Forgive me.
Yeah.
I slipped up there, big time. My apologies. But yeah, shooting out of their minds. Like that's just not college level shooting. Like that's unbelievable.
No.
Yeah, I don't see that level getting back, but I could also see them having their best stuff for their tournament too. So I've got a wider range for Michigan than Duke, but I could easily see either one of them being in that natty or winning it all.
You spoke about one team on that list that got boat raced about Michigan. That brings us to our final team, and I think that this team is the most polarizing. I said before we started the show, I think they're overall in March Madness every year, they're the most polarizing team because they play in a conference where you really don't have many great teams. You have St. Mary's that's projected in the field, and you have Santa Clara that's kind of hanging around the bubble right now. And of course, it's the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Zero national championships under Mark Few, but they always are somehow around, And so for me, I'll start this one off because this is a team I'm very passionate about this year.
Yeah.
This is a team that I have defended and will continue to defend. And I'll say one thing. It's all because Braden Huff is hurt. He is the X factor for them. He's he is when he plays with Ike, it opens up so many things. He can spread the floor he's 6'10" guy spreading the floor, and he can also finish down low. He's great defensively. He makes their whole offense so much more dynamic, and that's what I feel like Gonzaga's been missing recently. Now that loss to Portland is just a glaring red flag, just sticking out at me. It's like you just don't want to. I'm trying to look past it, but it still lingers in my mind.
Well, look, here's the thing. If it makes you feel better with that, because when you started talking about Gonzaga, my mind went to that Portland game. So if you watch the highlights of that, if you watch it live, like Portland will never play another game like that this entire season, nor have they. I don't know.
They probably won't play another game like this for another 10 years.
They shot out of their minds. Like I forget what the field goal percentage was, but I believe it was close to 60. I think
it was 58%.
They were going bananas. Like they won't do that again. And so Gonzaga just ran into a buzzsaw. And did it look bad because they were 21.5 point favorites? Yeah, but it's gonna happen. Yeah. So I'm not that. I don't let that loss define Gonzaga for me, but go on. I wanted to add that.
I think Gonzaga's. I don't think they're national title contenders simply because I don't trust their guard play enough. And good guard play is what wins in March. But I think Gonzaga is a legitimate Elite Eight contender and potentially Final Four contender. And I think that a lot of people are kind of sleeping on them, which is surprising because they're the 11th ranked team in the country. But I really think that Gonzaga has a chance to make it far in March. And to go along with that, I just mentioned bad guard play. I'm going to say Gonzaga's floor is, in fact, a round of 64 exit, simply because they I think that they are the most polarized. I think that they're so prone to these just stretches on offense where it's just feed it to Ike, hope he scores. Miss three from Adam Miller, miss three from Saint Super. Like, just like I just don't trust their offense at times. With Braden Huff, though, I do think they're a Final Four contender, and even with them, I think that they could get beat in the wrong matchup. I think they're currently projected as a 3 seed. Um, so a lot of good teams down there on that 14
I was going to
line.
say, so 1-16, like, we saw what we saw with Purdue and Fairleigh Dickinson, but that was, and then the other one was Virginia and UMBC. But UMBC, again, like Portland's, played one of the craziest games I've ever seen a mid-major play in the first round. It's like, unless you get something like that, like a 1 seed's not going to lose to a 16. But a 3 and 14, there's some terrifying 14 seeds out there. And we already saw Gonzaga go down once to Portland. Now, the only thing that sits in the back of my mind with Gonzaga is when you have a loss that's stinging. I don't think they're going to overlook a single game like that again. I think that they'll be fully on guard going into a 3 and 14 matchup. So that's where my confidence in them in that situation is derived. But it's the weird dry spells for Gonzaga sometimes. Like, there's some times where they're just not playing great basketball, like not rebounding well, not controlling the tempo well. Like, there's some times where they're just strange and out of rhythm, and that's where I get worried for them. Like, even in the round of 32 or the Sweet 16, like, that's where somebody can really catch them. So again, I think it's a team that has a lot of potential, especially with Huff coming back. Like, they could look a lot different with him back on the floor. But yeah,
Let
I
me check
mean,
his timeline.
I personally do not picture the scenario of them losing in the round of 64, nor do I really see them losing in the round of 32. I would probably say that my floor for them would be Sweet 16 and then ceiling Final Four. I don't see them going to the Natty either, though. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and it is going to come down to Huff. It's saying right now that his potential return is in the West Coast tournament. You never know how knee injuries go. If he's not out there in March, they're in real trouble.
Yeah, that's the flags will be redder for me if that is the case. If there's no Huff on the floor, especially against that 14 seed, that would rise some concerns for me. But if he's back, I don't have many concerns with the first 2 rounds, the first weekend. I think they'll be good. But I want to shift gears and talk about BBN here for a few minutes.
They always find their way on the show somehow.
They are a blue blood, whether people want to admit it or not. But my Mount Rushmore of blue bloods is them, Duke, North Carolina, and Kansas. I mean, they're all blue teams too. So
Solid list. No Nova?
For a little while, like Nova and UConn are teams that have had their spurts, but then they've also had dry spells too. So
I'm with you.
That's where, but their spurts of dominance were probably greater than any spur of dominance that any of the others have had, which is, Duke National Championship 2015.
At least in our lifetime.
Yeah, and Duke in the 90s was a different story. Carolina in the 80s was a different story. They're
Yeah.
Kansas pretty much forever in the Big 12 has been scary, but not as many natties as Duke or North Carolina. But here's my thought process. Here's my viewpoint with Mark Pope and Lexington right now. And I said this on SEC Unfiltered the other night. I'm going to regurgitate it here. So much of a head coach's success is predicated on fit. And when you move off of a guy like John Calipari, who had been there for over a decade, who was a fixture in Lexington, you got to have a Titan in there to replace him, or else somebody is going to be in over their skis. It's like, not at all is John Calipari a Nick Saban type by any means, but the situation is comparable. Somebody who'd been there for a while, who had an established reputation. They're big shoes to fill, essentially. We became very accustomed to John Calipari in Lexington. When Kentucky went to BYU and got Mark Pope, concern came out of me right there on the spots, because the first thing I thought of is, what's the fit going to be? I love BYU. I think they're doing phenomenal things up there right now. The football program is thriving. Their basketball program has rebounded significantly these past couple of years. They've been great. But going from Provo, Utah to Lexington, Kentucky, it's an adjustment. It's a culture shock. And yes, you can be great schematically. You can be great when it comes to coaching your players up, when it comes to designing plays, X's and O's. But if you struggle to connect with your fan base, you struggle to connect with boosters, you struggle to connect with administration, your ceiling automatically becomes a lot lower. And that's where I think Mark Pope is right now. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a smart coach. I just don't think that him and Kentucky makes a lot of sense, because I don't see him and the fan base fusing right now. I don't see a lot of synergy there at all. And so naturally, I think that the fit is just going to continue to, and the partnership is just going to erode as these years go on. And I don't know how many years do go on beyond this one. I mean, yeah, they just beat South Carolina last night, but South Carolina might be the worst or second to worst team in the SEC, depending on where you put Ole Miss. Doesn't really mean much. I've seen what I've seen out of Mark Pope in Kentucky this year, and those are my thoughts. I've seen a lot of SEC teams do this with football. The SEC and the South are so unique. You got to get people in there who understand the way of life, who understands the culture, understand what it's all about, had some kind of experience down there. Because if they don't, they're going to be lost. You're going to be playing catch up the entire time. So that's my thought process on that.
Well, I think it's kind of unfair to Pope to say he doesn't know what he's getting into, because he was a national championship point guard for Kentucky. So I think that in a way, he knows what he's getting into as a coach. I completely agree with you. BYU is a lot different of a program than Kentucky is. There's no tradition at BYU like there's Kentucky, but I think Pope knows what the expectations are. For me, I think I've said this before on here. I think it's less about Pope and his X's and O's. I think this is a poorly constructed roster, and it's an overpaid roster, and there's not a lot of sync to this lineup. I mean, at times they look good when Colin Chandler's able to shoot, but outside of Chandler, they really don't have any outside shooting. Oweh can shoot at times, and then you look at it and it's like, if you tried out a lineup of, Aberdeen shot well last night, but he's not a great shooter. He overpaid because of his tournament performance at Florida. I think that they're missing Jalen Lowe, who I think is a big piece. He provides a little bit of outside shooting, but he's not really an outside shooter. So for me, it's less of Pope. The fans are pissed at him. I get it. Kentucky, trust me. I went to Rupp the last two. I've been to Rupp twice. Last year when Alabama played them, just very entitled, spoiled fans. No offense, Kentucky fans. You deserve to be spoiled because you have a lot of history and tradition, but doesn't take away from the fact that you're asking a lot out of this guy, and you're asking him to come in after Calipari. You got to let him kind of figure out who he is in my mind. And if you don't give him time to do that, you're not going to find many people better than Pope, unless you think you're going to go get Josh Schertz from St. Louis and pay him a bag and pay Pope's buyout. You're not going to get that many people better. You're not getting Nate Oates. The reason why they have Mark Pope is because they swung and missed on everybody. They're talking about getting Patino. Patino's not leaving St. John's. So for me, I think that Pope, I don't think Pope's a great coach by any means. Trust me. I'm not on the Pope train, but I'm just saying I think he's in a bad situation, and I think that he needs a little bit of grace. And I understand and I think that the boosters are a little bit, what the fuck? We paid all this money to get this result. And I don't think Kentucky's a good team at all this year. I've told you that multiple times. But I think it's more of their roster. I think it's everything. I think it's the program, because they lost for early in March Madness twice with Calipari. I think they're getting what the Alabama football is getting. They're getting a little bit of sports karma.
Yeah, it goes back to the Calipari age. Like it's not like it's anything new. Like they lost to Oakland in his last year. They lost to St. Peter's 2 years before that. And I didn't. I just want to clarify because I don't know if I delivered it perfectly when I had my introductory. I'm talking more about Mark Pope as a coach when it comes to
Yeah.
being in the SEC. I know he played for
I
Kentucky.
figured.
Being a player in the SEC and a coach in the SEC is a totally different thing. So
Oh
I just
yeah, I'm with you
I
there.
just want to hammer down that, and it definitely is an adjustment for going from
Yeah.
BYU to that. Maybe he's cut out, maybe he isn't. But what you said about the roster construction, they took that NIL approach going into this year. Go spend as much money as we possibly can, and it's almost like throwing Jello or spaghetti at the wall and hoping it sticks. We've
Yeah.
seen teams do it in college football. We've seen Ole Miss do it and succeed. We've seen Florida State do it and A&M do it and explode.
Hell, Michigan did it this year. I mean,
Michigan did it
Michigan,
this year.
but like, I mean, if you look at the variety of teams that are doing this, I'll also say Jasper Johnson has not really developed how he'd hope, as anybody would hope that Johnson would have developed. He's borderline unplayable at times, which is really sad to me because I loved him coming out of high school. But yeah, it's just weird. It's just Kentucky basketball is just in a weird state right now, and I don't think you can narrow it down to one singular entity.
No, there's a lot of moving parts, and that's why I don't think we're going to see things improve there for or get back to the level it was at in the 2010s for a while. Just because they're in a weird slippery slope right now. Like
They're in a rut.
Yeah, they're in a real rut. It's going to take a couple years of building culture and streamlining resources and getting the right people in there to really bring this back to the machine that it was at one time. Do I think they can get back? Yes, but it's going back to something else you said from the fans. The patience is going to be key, and I do think that the Alabama football comparison is great because that's another thing too. There's just a lot of moving pieces going on, and it's not even just the team. I think it's the athletic department overall. I mean, football is kind
I
of
agree.
a mess with the whole Mark Stoops thing. Like I think that the athletic department right now is just kind of disjointed.
I agree.
I think it is there. I think it is at Alabama. I think it is at LSU right now. Like that's why any teams coming out of those three institutions, I'm kind of like, it's not what it was at one point.
I just want to say, and this is just a complete and total stray. But I heard their name pop up, and I'm like sitting here, and I'm like, I gotta just bring it up. Ole Miss is fucking awful. I mean, good. They took an NIL approach too. They are horrible.
What the fuck is even that? Like I'm gonna
Kentucky. You could be in Ole Miss's shoes right now. They were around the same level last year, and one team just fell off a mountaintop. But yeah,
Ole Miss made a little run last year.
Yeah.
Compared to what people expect.
They were in the Sweet 16, were they not?
Yeah, and
they played Michigan State in the Sweet 16. Michigan State. Yeah,
I believe they almost beat Michigan State.
Yeah, well, yeah. I have no idea what's going on over there, but
yeah,
that might have to be saved for a different time.
Yeah, that I could go into depth about Ole Miss. I mean, there's some teams in the SEC that are lowly that can understand, like South Carolina, LSU is no surprise to me. Auburn, the way they're performing is no surprise. I mean, it's Pearl's first year. There's some turnover with guys going to the NBA or different teams. Like I get it with Auburn, and even Mississippi State. Like they're very reliant on Hubbard.
Yeah, they're also very poor.
And yeah, they struggle.
They don't spend money. So, like,
this is Ole Miss though is
no.
I don't know what's going on there. I can't put a finger on that.
Dude, and the SEC is not very good either this year, so I don't get it, man.
The only team that I take seriously coming out of that conference is
Florida.
Florida. I mean,
yeah.
I think Arkansas has a somewhat high ceiling, but I think they're a Sweet 16 out.
I thought about putting them in as my team. I thought about doing them instead of Vandy, but I mean, I think that they're just. I don't want to look like an idiot because they're going to make me. Whatever I say about Arkansas, they'll do the opposite in the tournament. I've learned that over the last 6 years.
They're like your Texas A&M football to me. Whatever I say A&M is going to do, they do the opposite. Same with Notre Dame.
Yeah,
They're and,
yeah.
and whenever they played each other last year, I was like, son of a bitch. This is what we've come to.
Did it go? Did it go? Did it go well for you?
What do you think?
No, I think you picked A&M. I think I remember that.
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You know who I picked the year before? Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Yep, I got 0 for 2. I'm happy they're not playing
Yeah,
this year. Son of a
I think
bitch.
I went. Yeah, I was in Vegas for the Notre Dame A&M game, and I had a little bit of coin on Notre Dame just because of the plus odds. So I was happy. I picked them both years though, so they screwed me over this year.
Yeah, it's. I mean, at home, I thought it was a pretty good bet, and I also I liked what I saw out of Wigman. For the 4 weeks he was in 23, I was like maybe he comes back and we see that version of him again, but he sucked, and so that was
Yeah,
also the reason why Notre Dame really was able to run that. They won I think 23-13 or something like that. But yeah,
yeah, yeah, something like that.
well we've got some college basketball to get to right now, so we'll let y'all go. It's been another great episode of the Close Call. We'll be back next Thursday regular time, so book it.
Y'all got some bonus footage of what our conversations look like daily about college football and basketball. It goes straight from Kentucky and Mark Pope to Ole Miss that leads into A&M and Notre Dame football series 2023, 2024, 2025.
Fucking A&M.
Yeah.
I'm telling you,
We got beef.
no, if there's one team out that those are the two teams I beef with when it comes to outcomes. It's those two. Well, thank you for coming on, Luke, and thank you all for watching today. Have a great day.